It was Christmas Eve, 1945, in Fayetteville, West Virginia. The Sodder family was asleep when, just after 1 a.m., a fire erupted inside their home. Within minutes, flames consumed the entire house. But what shocked everyone wasn't the fire itself. It was that 5 of the Sodder children vanished that night and no trace of their remains was ever found. George and Jenny Sodder were Italian immigrants living the American dream. They had 9 children and a comfortable home near the edge of town. That Christmas Eve, the kids stayed up late to open their presents. But at around 1 a.m., Jenny woke to a loud thud on the roof, then the smell of smoke. She rushed to wake her husband. Within seconds, the house was an inferno. George and Jenny managed to escape with 4 of their children, but the other 5, Morris, Martha, Louie, Jenny, and Betty, were trapped upstairs. By the time the fire brigade arrived, the house had collapsed into ashes. Yet no bones, no bodies, and no remains were ever recovered. Investigators blamed faulty wiring and claimed the children's bodies were incinerated, but George and Jenny didn't believe it. The household lights had stayed on as the fire spread, which wouldn't happen with an electrical fault. Even stranger, the phone line was mysteriously cut hours before the fire. When George tried to start his trucks to rescue the children, both vehicles failed to start, though they had worked perfectly earlier that day. Jenny began doing her own research. She learned that even at crematorium-level heat, bones don't fully disintegrate. So how could an ordinary house fire erase all 5 children completely? Then came the witnesses. A woman working at a gas station claimed she saw the children inside a car the next morning. Another woman said she saw them with 2 adults at a nearby hotel that same night. And one neighbor remembered seeing a man throw something onto the Sodders' roof shortly before the blaze, exactly what Jenny had heard before waking up. Could the fire have been staged? Were the children kidnapped under the cover of chaos? Authorities refused to reopen the case, but the Sodders wouldn't stop. They hired private investigators, distributed flyers, and offered rewards. One detective mysteriously disappeared after taking the case. When George personally dug through the ashes years later, he found fragments of human bones, but analysis showed they belonged to a man in his 20s, not a child. It seemed someone had planted the bones to make the family stop looking. In 1967, more than 20 years after the fire, Jenny received an envelope with no return address. Inside was a photograph of a young man in his mid-20s and a cryptic note that read, "Louis Sodder, I love brother Frankie. Illo Boys, a 90132 or 35. Jenny was convinced it was her missing son Louis. She hired another investigator to trace the letter, but he vanished without a trace and was never heard from again. The Sodder parents died years later, never learning what happened to their 5 missing children. Over 70 years later, the mystery of the Sodder children remains unsolved. Did they perish in the flames? Were they kidnapped in a carefully planned abduction? Or is the truth something even darker, buried in history? One thing is certain, the fire may have ended that night, but the questions it left behind still burn today.